Hi and welcome to PolyOriginals with Fiona Abel-Smith. So for today I thought we'd have a bit of fun with glitters, and not just one glitter, double glitters, in order to do this double glitter star decoration. So these are just based on polystyrene moulds. Polystyrene moulds have been used for a long time with polymer clay, as most of the time the polymer just goes straight over the top and gives a really nice finish. However, just to be doubly sure, if you're not sure whether your brand of polystyrene mould will work, then just give it a try with some scrap clay, and if it works with scrap clay, nice thin layer, then you know it's going to work when you put your decoration on it. So here are a couple of samples. This is the sample we're going to do today. So I'm going for the blue and silver with a nice sort of purpley inside. You are going to get quite a lot of extra background of this double glitter sheet left when we've worked with it. So what I'm planning to do is use the excess to make this nice little petal pendant too, and this will be coming up in a couple of days' time as an extra video, almost like a part 2, that you can use all your leftover bits and pieces from what we're doing today in today's video. So let's have a bit of fun and make a lovely double-sided star on today's project. So for today's project you will need some form of small roller, a craft knife, a knitting needle or something similar. We're just going to use this to smooth some seams together. This one happens to be 4mm, but just something along those lines would do. If you have one, a small ball tool, which is 4mm or 5mm, would work well, but again you don't need this, but if you have it, amazing. You need something just to create a hole to put a hook in at the end, so I'm just using a small bead needle. This one is 0.6mm in diameter and is just pointed at one end. A polymer clay blade. I sometimes refer to these as tissue blades because that's what I'm used to calling them. Your polystyrene form. Now I'm going to use the star in today's project simply because it's one of the more difficult shapes to cover, so I'm going to show you how to do that, but obviously you can use egg shapes, round shapes, any sort of shape you want to do, but I'll show you how to do the star. A small loop with a screw end. We're going to use that to put the ribbon through when we finished our piece. These are available online or from some craft stores. Some little crystals to set into if you want to. Now these ones I'm going to use are the ones with a little triangular back to them, so they're actually going to sit into the clay. If you'd rather do the flat backed ones, then obviously feel free to use those, and just think whether or not it's one that you can bake in or whether you want to add them afterwards. These ones I'll bake in, but of course the flat backed ones, the plastic ones, you can always add in afterwards. These ones are glass. I've just got a couple of sheets of baking parchment simply to put some things on, just to keep them whilst we work on them and to put them to one side, so something along those lines. I'm going to use the micro glitter. Now this is the very fine glitter. Plus side, it looks amazing on polymer clay. Downside, it does get everywhere. So you'll see on me and everything else, even though I haven't even started using it, I'm already glittery. Now this glitter that I'm using is the one that's biodegradable, and I'll put a link to where I get this from in the details below the video description. But most craft stores or online, again, you can buy this sort of micro glitter. And these are the two colours I'm using today. I'm going to use a texture sheet. Any texture sheet you've got will work well. This one happens to be a Lisa Pavelka one, and it's called Tooled Leather, and it's one that's got a nice deep pattern, so that's what you're looking for, something that's got a nice deep pattern. But just use whatever you've got to hand. Some form of texture will look good. I am going to use a measuring sheet. This is one I always use. It's freely downloadable from www.printablepaper.net, and it's the 4 squares to 1 inch, but obviously you can download it in centimetres if you prefer. You're going to need a few sheets of A4 paper just to collect and save your glitter and to make sure it doesn't go everywhere. A smaller piece of paper and a pencil and a pair of scissors just to make a template to go around our star shape, and then just some form of decorative ribbon just to finish off our piece. And apart from that, I will be using a pasta machine dedicated to polymer clay use in order to get thin sheets of polymer clay, and also just have some wet wipes or wet tissues and some paper tissues to hand just to clean hands and clean away any glitter as we go. Now this project, if you don't happen to have a pasta machine, that is fine. I will give the details as we go along of how to do things without a pasta machine, and it'll simply be a case of rolling the clay very, very flat into thin sheets. So you can always do that for this one if you don't have access to a pasta machine. You'll need a tile to bake on, I've just got a couple of curved strips of ordinary card which I will sit the polystyrene star on afterwards when it's ready for baking, just to protect it from the tile below it, and some aluminium foil, so I tent the whole tile in the oven so that should my oven spike whilst the piece is baking, it's not going to damage the clay at all. And last but definitely not least, you will need some form of sticky tape. The clear tape is the best one because you can see what you're doing, but if you don't have that, then any sticky tape should work, and a nice broad band of tape means that it's easier, although obviously you can use the narrow ones as well. Okay, so I think that's about it for all the equipment that we need, so let's move on to the clay for today's project. All brands of clay will work well for what we're doing today, and what I'm doing just for a change is I'm actually mixing my clay. So I've got some Cernit here in the black and all the rest are Fimo Soft. Main reason being I have a lot of black in Cernit from a project I was doing some time ago, so why not use what you've got? And when I come to baking it, I will bake it at the temperature that Cernit would bake at, which is 130 as opposed to the 110 for the Fimo, but it doesn't burn at 130 if you protect it with the aluminium foil, which I normally do when I tent everything. So for the Cernit, I've got 3 ounces of the black, or 85 grams, so quite a bit, about a pack and a half, one of the small packs and a half. Then I've got smaller bits, so it's less than ½ ounce of the white and the plum, so it's about 10 grams of each of these. And then I've also got brilliant blue, lilac, purple and raspberry, and in all of those I've got 1/4 ounce or 7 grams. And you need to condition all of those colours separately in the amounts that they're laid out for you like that. And if you're unsure on how to condition clay, then I do have a video which gives some tips and techniques on how to condition clay, particularly if it's old and crumbly, and I will put a link to that in the description below the video. So because once we start with the glitter, that glitter gets absolutely everywhere. We are going to do all the cane work first, put it to one side, then we'll do the glitter, and then we'll try and clean everything up so that when we get to put these little bits of polymer clay on top of the glitter, they won't themselves get covered in it. Well, that's the plan. Let's see how that goes. So we'll start just by taking our white piece of clay, and I've just conditioned it, rolled it into a ball, rolled it into a log, flattened the ends, and then put it down. It's just over about 1 inch in length. And I'm just going to pinch along the top of it just to create a slight sort of triangle shape. And then take your piece of raspberry coloured clay. Now I've put this through a medium setting on the pasta machine, so setting number 3 on my machine, where 0 is thick and 9 is thin. And I'm just going to set that over the top and use my blade to chop away the excess from either side and make this just slightly wider than my pieces that it's sitting on. You then pick this up and wrap it over the point of your triangle. And now all we're going to do is we're just going to reduce this down by pushing in and pulling it longer, and every time it gets to about 2.5 inches, sort of 7 or so centimetres, we will chop it in half. So you chop it in half down the middle, pick it up and put it together. Put those 2 pieces together and just repeat doing that until you're happy with the amount of stripes you have going through. Okay, so I'm happy with that amount of stripes, so I need to just rechange this slightly, because at the moment it's sort of diamond shape where these are the points, but I want these 2 to be longer, so I'm just going to press in and change it into more of a square shape to start with, all down the length. And once I've got it to a nice square shape, then I can start reducing it along this way just by pressing in and turning and pressing and turning. And I'll do that until it gets to the size that I want it to be a finished piece for our petal. So I've gone for a piece that's about ½ inch, so 2 of these small squares in width along each of the sides. And when I've got it roughly the size I want, then I'm just going to press in along the edge just to round it off slightly. I'm also going to roll it slightly on my tile just to give me a rounder edge on the bottom, and then we'll chop down and see what we've got. Okay, so there's our petals, and that's about the right size and the shape that I want. So what I now need to do is to chop off 10 pieces, so 10 slices. They don't have to be particularly thin, so cut whatever's comfortable for you, but cut 10 of them, put them on a piece of paper and put them safely to one side, well away from the glitter we're about to start using. If when you've chopped your piece down it's become particularly distorted, I'm lucky mine haven't too much, but you can always pull and push and change the shape of your petals at this stage. So say put those on one side, and then this piece is going to go on one side as well, because we'll use this for part 2 of the tutorial where we make that little pendant. So for the next piece we need to build the leaf cane, and what I've done is I've conditioned our blue, our purple and our lilac, and I've put them through and created a shape, just not through the pasta machine, just as a lump of clay, 2 triangle shapes on either side, and then a shape that will fit in the middle. And what we're going to do with these is we're going to create our skinner blend, and they're going to sit together like that. Doesn't have to be exact, but you do need the diagonals down the sides. We'll then fold, put it through the pasta machine, fold top and bottom to create a nice skinner blend. If you are unsure on how to do a skinner blend, I do have a tutorial for this, and I'll put the link in the description below the video. The other thing is you don't necessarily need a pasta machine to do everything we're doing today. If you don't have a pasta machine, then simply roll these, fold bottom to top, roll, fold bottom to top, roll, and keep going until you get the same blend that I'm about to get in a pasta machine. I have put the plum clay through the pasta machine. Again, you can do this by hand and just roll yourself out a nice thin sheet. And I've put this on setting number 7 on my pasta machine. So I'll now put these back through. I'm going to give them a roll first, just to make sure that those 3 colours are nicely adhered. And then, because that's quite thick, I will put them through on a thick setting of the pasta machine. They'll go in that way down, and I will start on setting number 2, and each time I do it I'll collect and fold bottom to top until I have a nice blend of those colours going through. So there I have my blend through of the 3 colours, and I'm just going to chop that into a couple of slices just to make it easier to put back through the pasta machine. Fit those through on top. I'm going to put it back through through the darkest colour first, so if there's any mess on the pasta machine it collects on the dark end, holding onto those bits so they don't split open as it goes through. First of all I'm going to put it through on setting number 2, and then I'm going to go down to my thinnest usable setting, and I'll bring you back when I have a really nice long strip. Again, if you're doing it by hand without a pasta machine, just roll it that way, as long and thin as you can possibly get. So there's our nice long thin piece of polymer clay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it up from the blue end to the light end, rolling it nice and tight, making sure there is no trapped air in between. Now all leaf canes will work well for this project. In fact, the one I did for a little flower bowl recently on one of my tutorials will work very well, but this is a nice simplified version of that, just to do a quick leaf cane. So we're going to use our measuring sheet, but before we get onto that I'm just going to change the shape of this. I'm just going to press in the sides to make it sort of an oblong shape, where you want this side to be about half the size of that. So that's the rough proportion we're going for. And I'm going to pull this out until it's about 3 inches, 7.5 centimetres in length. Then we're going to chop off a piece. Put that piece to one side and then repeat. And we're going to carry on doing that until we have 5 pieces in decreasing sizes. Once you have your 4 pieces, excluding any of bad distortion on the ends, I'll just take that very end bit off. We want this piece to go till it's about 2.5 inches in length, so about 6.5 centimetres, just roughly. Again, chop off your final piece, and this piece put to one side for a moment. So you have all your pieces there, and you're going to chop them all in half along the middle. Having got them, put them together so that the middle bits are all near and next to each other. So they're lining up. And then you want to lay them flat on your tile and then push them all in this direction, because at the moment these light colours are going sideways and we want the light colour to really be forced upwards. So I start with the top end and really push that one down, and then do the next one, and then follow your way down. Pick it up off the tile so you can start to see what you've got, and then you can always reinforce it by doing it from the inside out as well. Once you've done that on one side, repeat on the other side. And hopefully you'll end up with two halves where the lines are starting to go outwards. You then go back to the little piece you had left over and check the size of it. And this side, one of the sides, you're just going to pull up into a nice point all along the edge. Find your piece of outside colour. So this was the plum we were using. Cut a bit that's the same width as this piece. And you're going to put a piece of purple round the outside, over the top, and then back down. So you're covering it all areas, but not the very bottom. With the roller, roll from the bottom until you've got a really nice thin bit at the top. And you're looking to get something that's going to start stretching up across the height of your leaf cane. So I'm just going to pull it with my hands. So you want it to get thinner and thinner and thinner towards the top bit. And then that bit just sits inside. And your two pieces go up around the outside of it. And I'll just chop it off so you can see what we've got. You can see it gives a nice thin vein on the inside. And then you should have enough of your outside colour to wrap the whole way round your leaf cane. Start from the bottom area and go all the way around the outside. Once your leaf is completely covered in that outside layer, we just need to change the shape slightly in order to reduce it, and we're going to make it down to that nice square shape. So I'm just going to take that and just press it between my fingers. And once you have a roughly sort of square shape going on, then you can start reducing that down. Once you've got it to just sort of over or just about ½ an inch in width again, chop down so you can see what you've got, so you can see which side your leaf is facing, and then just press. We're going to reduce this now that we can see which way the leaf is facing by pressing down the sides, then pressing down the middles just to soften it off. And we want to end up with a leaf that's about 3/4 of the inch in width, so not far off where we are now. And just keep doing it until you are happy with what you've got. Take off a piece from the end to see how your leaf is going to look. And when you're happy with that, we are again going to cut some slices now, put them on a piece of paper and put them to one side, and you will need to cut 30 slices. So 30 slices of leaf cane, and then put them to one side for use later on. So there are 30 slices. There's our rest of our cane left over. So again, I'm going to put this on one side and we'll come back to use this when we get to do the pendant in part 2. But for now, I'm going to put these aside well out of the way of all that glitter. To decorate a form such as the star shape, then we're going to need to create something to go over to fit exactly on the shape. And the easiest thing to do is to create this triangular shape, double it up, so effectively we get this sort of shape, which we can cut out, and then we just need to cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to do each side of the star. So to start with, just take your piece of paper, go down one of the angles, draw along the top, and draw along where you think it comes out, and then cut wider, because you can always go smaller. Go back in and think, okay, if that's correct, you can put a little fold in. So let's try down there. They tend to have blunt noses as well, so don't put a point at that end. So we're not far off, but it needs to be a little bit. Let's try like that. Right, that's not bad. So now, if you get your piece of paper and fold it in half, work out that the fold's down there. And then use that as a template to go along down and see what you've got. You'll probably find, like me, it's a tad too big, because it generally is, so that's fine. Go back and just shave a fraction off, so it's not much, just a tiny bit off these two ends and a tiny bit around the top. Bearing in mind, of course, when you cut down the clay, you're going to go cut around the outside, so your clay is going to be fractionally larger than this. But when you've got a piece you're happy with, and that's not far off, then that's your template. So I'm going to remind myself that that's the middle point of the star. And now, once we've got our glitter clay ready, we can start cutting our shapes. So when it comes to using the glitter, I'm going to work on the measuring sheet, but I've also got 2 sheets of excess A4 paper underneath just to help catch some of the glitter. I also have a single sheet of A4 just folded in half, one for each colour of glitter we are using, to collect the excess glitter and put it back into the bags. So I have taken our nice slab of black clay. I have put it through one thicker setting than I want to use on the pasta machine. And again, if you're doing this by hand, just roll it out to a nice sort of thickish setting. That's about 3mm is the thickness that I've gone for it. So put him down nice and flat on the surface. Get your sellotape or your sticky tape to hand. So they say the thicker the better. You will need your tissue blade, your texture sheet, and your glitters, and you will also need some wet wipes, some tissues, anything else you need to clean up afterwards as well. So start out with the colour you want to be least dominant, and I'm going to go for the blue as being my least dominant of the 2 colours today, and put on quite a nice amount of glitter. So I've put a good sort of teaspoon size, so a nice amount of glitter on the middle. I am then going to spread this all over the sheet of clay, rubbing it in with my fingers. Right the way up to the edges. And when you think you've got it all in, rub off the excess onto the sheet by the side. And what you're looking for is a lovely sheet of clay completely smoothed over with glitter where there's none of the clay showing. So this is why you don't have to use black clay, you can use scrap clay underneath, because you're not going to see any of this clay in the finished piece. And then put the excess back into the bag. Now don't worry about all these excess bits around here or anything that's gone onto your work table. We are going to need some excess glitter when we get to the stage of putting it around the form, so we'll actually use this straight off the table and off the paper when we get to it, but the majority of this is going back in the bag. You now want to take your texture sheet, place it on top of your glittered clay, and we're going to firmly press down. Now obviously I'm going to have to pick this up and move it over to get the whole sheet patterned. Now if you want a nice pattern that you can clearly see the pattern from the texture sheet, then only do it once. If you're not worried and quite happy with a random pattern, then having gone over this once or a couple of times, if you see places where it hasn't pressed down, then go back in and do more pressing to get slightly more random. But I'm going to see if I can do it so that the whole thing comes out in one nice bit. So as you can see, I just went over there a few bits where it hadn't gone down. Then we are going to take our tape and we're going to stick it nice and taut over the top of this sheet. And once it's nice and taut, we're going to peel away. So all the bits that are raised should peel away and just reveal the black clay, and all the bits where we've pressed down should have the blue left on the inside. So there we go. So you can see there where we've pulled off, so we've got the blue left on the inside, glitter there, and where the blacks are showing through. But what we need to do is we're going to do our double glitter technique, is now we're going to put the silver on top. And the theory is wherever the black clay is exposed, we can now put a whole load of silver on and it will stick to where the black is, but it won't stick on where the blue is. So that one, as you saw, I spread around more. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to rub it in. And again, as before, I'm going to shake off all the excess and put it back in the bag. And we are left with a sheet, which is a lovely mix of blue and silver. And then we need to carefully remove this from the laminated sheet that I'm working on. So the easiest way to do that is to, with your knife, slide it underneath and then peel it up. Slide a bit and peel it up, and obviously keep your hands well away from the blade. But just do a little bit at a time and it should just come nicely away from the sheet. And there you have your sheet, and we're now going to put it through one thinner setting on the pasta machine, or if you're doing it by hand, just roll the whole thing until all those different levels are smoothed out. And what you end up with is a lovely shimmery sheet of clay, completely smooth, with that pattern almost embossed in the different colours, and this is what we're going to use to decorate our polystyrene form. So with our sheet finished, we can go back and find that template we made and just start cutting out our 5 pieces for each side. So I would suggest doing one to start with to make sure it is the right size and does fit round, and once you've done the one, you can start doing the others. You shouldn't need any glue or anything. In fact, you don't really want to put glue on the polystyrene, because if you put glue on the polystyrene, then it encourages the polystyrene to stick to the clay, and when it bakes, if the polystyrene shrinks, then obviously it will pull the clay with it. So it's the clay you want to stick to itself and not the polystyrene. So just bend that round, and actually that's not too bad at all. So I will now start doing the other 4 pieces, bring you back when we start fitting them on around the outside of the star. So once you've got all your pieces cut out, you can start putting the second piece on. And I tend to go round the top bit first, make sure it's right there, because you will sometimes need to just shave off a fraction where the two meet. Just pull any excess away, because what you're looking for is a lovely tight fit down those sides. And when your pieces are nearly together, with your knitting needle, just roll them together where the join is. Make sure it fits nicely. Go around the outside. If it looks as though there's a bit too much around the corner, just shave off a fraction. Same with this one, just needs to go slightly in where that angle is. And then just keep doing that, adding your pieces all the way around. Okay, so as you saw, I was sort of tidying up as I went along, so I've got exactly the other side to do now. So I'll cut myself my next 5 pieces, but I'll try and cut them in such a way as to leave myself at least a little bit of this background sheet left, so that we can have some fun and create that pendant with some leftover bits. And then just going to do exactly the same when you put the second piece on. Just marry it up and make sure it's going to fit nicely, and trim off any excess pieces where it doesn't fit. So once you've finished with the knitting needle and the craft knife, and you've ended up with your piece completely covered, go back and look at all the seams, all the joins, anywhere where there's a bit of black showing where you don't want the black. With your finger, just pick up some of the glitter you've got left and pop it down. And of course the normal thing will apply. Where the glitter already is, it's not going to stick, but where there's plain black clay, it will stick. So just go all the way around the inside edges, anywhere that you think there may be a bit of black, until you've got your piece completely covered in glitter. Once you're finished and your piece is completely covered and you are absolutely happy with it, don't forget to use all your leftover chopped off bits of clay to pick up all the excess glitter that's around, rather than just sweeping it into the bin. So waste not, want not, collect your glitter and then give yourself a nice glittery piece of clay. Put that on one side and then clean everything, because we want to have got rid of all the glitter from your hands, from your work surface, everything, before we start putting the bits of polymer clay onto this. So we'll start with our petals, and they sit more or less in the centre, point, and hopefully should just about fit on the points as they go out. Put them on just gently to start with, and you can go back in and finesse them if you need to. If you're happy with how they're sitting, either with your knitting needle, or if you've got one, a ball tool, just run the points into the middle, create a little divot in the middle, And then we can move on to the leaves, and they're going to go one off to one side. So just curl them, twist them, pull them the way you want it to go, one off to the other side, and one down the middle. Now I've very much made the ones on this particular one sort of go in with the colour scheme we've got. They also look nice with contrasting leaves, so just do whichever you want to do. And once you've done one face, just turn over and repeat on the other side. When both sides are done, decide if you like a particular point that looks like the top. I'm going to go for this one. And with a very thin needle, this is just one of the polymer clay needles, put a hole right down through, because that's where we'll put the little screw afterwards. So make sure you can see where it's gone. And then the final bit on both sides, either with a contrasting colour or with a similar colour to the middle of your flower, and I'm just going similar today. Just take a very small piece, pop one in one side, one in the other, and then try not to press down too hard on either side. Take your little crystals. Because these ones have got a point, I'm going to put these in before baking. You could of course use flat backed ones, in which case put them on after. I'm just going to create a little bit of a divot in there, and then just pop in our blue, press him down, turn over, do the same on the other side. And then after baking, I'll probably just pop those out and then just glue them back in. So there is your piece finished. So all you've got to do now is to bake it. So I'll bake it on a tile with the pieces of card underneath to add as protection from the bottom of the tile, and I will tent the whole thing in aluminium foil just to protect it should my oven spike whilst baking, and bake according to the manufacturer's instructions for the brand of clay you are using. Now I'm using both Cernit and Fimo here, so I will bake at 130 degrees centigrade. And when it's baked, I'll bring you back. We'll put the little hook in the top and our piece will be finished. So here's our piece baked and cold and out of the oven. And all I'm going to do is I've found the hole that I made beforehand, and I'm just screwing in the screw, which of course will leave me a nice piece here to put the ribbon through, ready to hang as a star decoration. And that's it, that's the project done. And I'll just take you on to some of the other things and the other colour combinations you can use. So there we are, there's a couple more colour combinations for you. So this was the blue and silver background. On this one I've done red and gold. This one I've done green and gold. So this flower was white with a bit of peppermint, and then for the leaf I used a couple of colours of green with some red, darker red surrounding. And this one I've gone for a red flower, and this leaf is actually one of the ones I did in the flower bowl tutorial, so slightly different leaf used on that one. And don't forget you can cover other things. So this is again one of the egg-shaped piece of polystyrene, and in this one, this is one where the polystyrene actually shrank down inside. This is a glass bauble that I've covered using the same technique, and on these ones I've just done multiple flowers with just a couple of leaves going out of each one put round the outside. So don't forget you can do that as an alternative. If you're unsure how to cover a round object in polymer clay sheet like the glitter sheet, then have a look at the spiral bauble tutorial, and I'll put a link to that in the details below the video, and that shows you how to cover with scrap clay and use exactly the same technique but with the glitter covered clay. So there we go. That's the project finished for today, and there are some of our finished stars. And don't forget, with your leftover glitter sheets, if you want to, you can always have a go at the double glitter petal pendant, and that'll be coming up in a couple of days time, just as soon as I've finished editing that video for you. There's the project all finished. I hope you enjoyed that one and had a lot of fun doing it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you for those of you who subscribe. I really do appreciate it, it makes such a difference. So I think that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Bye.